So, yeah, let's start off. Who's read this book? The Art of Delivering the Wrong Product 4 Times as Fast. Usually I see some hands up there of people that really didn't pay all that much attention, it just came in. Okay, so nobody, of course, that book doesn't exist. Would it sell? Would your CTO or your CFO, would he buy? He or she. When I say he, I always mean he or she, okay? Good. So would she, the CFO, would she buy that book and give it to everybody as a Christmas present in your organization? I see shaking heads. Probably not. It wouldn't sell that fantastically, right? Would it be of value to deliver the wrong product 4 times as fast? Yes, it would be of value. Why? Learning, exactly. So first of all, you get 4 attempts to deliver maybe luckily 1 good product for the same price. That's fantastic. Okay, but you could also learn after each of those. Okay, and then maybe have a better attempt next time. So yeah, that would be a value. Still, your CFO wouldn't buy it, I'm pretty sure. The real title, of course, is The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time by Jeff Sutherland. He was mentioned earlier already today, the guy that gave us Scrum together with Ken Schwaber. Okay? To my knowledge, I think it's the best-selling Scrum book. And it is a super book. I just hate the title, because it says the same thing. Yes?
I'm just going to ask, is this the same talk as you gave in Chicago? Is there anything new?
Super relevant question, thank you. So the question was, is this going to be the exact same talk that I gave in Chicago, at GOTO in Chicago? And the answer is not exactly the same. Of course, we refine and improve our products, right? But it is a similar talk, yes. But thanks for that super question, I love it. Okay, so back to the actual talk. The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time. I really hate that title. And I've told Jeff that. I've worked quite a bit with Jeff. So I've told him that. I don't think he always listens, but yeah, I'll come back to that at the end. But why do I hate the title? Because it only speaks to efficiency. It only speaks to, like, let's improve things so we can deliver more. You probably have heard it in other talks, more stuff, right? But you don't make sure that you're delivering the right stuff, and that's what we're going to look at today. Of course, agility is also, and Scrum is also about efficiency, but it's mainly about effectiveness. And if those 2 terms, you go like, what's the difference? Isn't it the same? It's funny, actually, in Danish, we only have 1 word for it, so that's really confusing. But it's not the same, and we're going to look a lot into that today. So it's dangerous if your organization focuses mainly on efficiency. So if people buy this book, because it speaks to what they're trying to achieve, namely deliver more stuff, then that is danger. And we're going to look a lot into that. Good. So a few words about myself. I'm Klaus Bucka-Lassen. I live in Zurich, Switzerland. I was born and raised in Denmark. I studied computer science in Denmark. I've lived in Canada and Australia as well, but the last 25 years in Switzerland. So I came from the country with the best beer in the world, and I live in the country with the best chocolate in the world. I'm sure I pissed all Belgians up here now. Okay, so, wow, 2 already. I'll piss off the Germans as well later. Okay, so these are companies that I work with or associate with or socialize with, and in particular I want to mention Scrum Inc. because that's Jeff's company. Again, I'm not criticizing his work by any way. I love Scrum. I'm a big proponent of Scrum. I love it, and agility in general, okay? But yeah, just the title of the book. Even though from a marketing point of view, fantastic title because it does sell. Okay, these are companies that I have worked for. This is what I do. As you, well, the Agile conferences part, you probably guessed by now, but I'm an Agile trainer, coach, and consultant. I was a developer until 12 years ago. You can ask me in a break why I stopped that and did this instead. But what really is important is, of course, this title, Agility is Inefficient. So for everybody who joined today to hear some Agile bashing because you hate it, sorry, that's not going to happen. because I don't really think it's inefficient. I just lured you in. It's clickbait. But now you're here, you can't really get up and go, can you? So what's the goal of the talk? It is to provoke. As you maybe have guessed, I like to provoke. I like to provoke a discussion about agility, okay? Because agility is not a free lunch. There is cost to it as well, especially in the beginning if your organization is trying to become more agile. Okay, so there is a cost to it, and people need to understand that before they go on this journey, one of the most hated words these days, but go on that journey. And I want to give you some tools or indicators of when your organization is trying to become agile for the wrong reasons. I like to call that fake agility. And it often has to do with a focus on efficiency. So we're going to look at that. Who's tired of the word, and now honest, who's tired of the word agile? Yes. Okay. Only about 50%. Because there was just recently a survey that DJØF, it's the Danish Association for Lawyers and Economists, did, and they asked the readers, this is from the magazine, like, what is the worst word on your job? And agile made it to number 3. We should get it to number 1, shouldn't we? Like only 3rd place. So that's the Danish way of spelling it, Agile, but that's what this said. And I'm not so surprised. And to be honest, I almost feel a little bit embarrassed when I these days tell people I'm an agile coach. I'm trying to find a new word for it. If anybody has an idea, please let me know. You can write that in the comments, like in the app, or you can say it at the end when we do a Q&A. I'd be happy. And maybe not effectiveness consultant. That sounds a little bit too boring. Okay? Good. So these days, everything is agile, right? We have agile procurement, and we have agile HR, and we have agile project managers. I don't even know what that is. It's, yeah. Anyhow, so let's dig into this efficiency and effectiveness. Anybody quickly wants to define the difference for me, or for everybody? Effectiveness, efficiency? Yes? Yeah.
Going fast, maybe to the right direction, to the wrong direction, doesn't matter.
Exactly. Pretty close. I'll disagree a little bit. Like the first one, the answer was efficiency is like you're just fast. Doesn't matter what direction. Might be the wrong direction, okay, but you're just fast. And effectiveness is about you delivering what you're being asked for. The first one I would tend a little bit, but sometimes I don't really know what they're asking for. Okay, so maybe but it's like delivering what they need. And we'll get into who they is, okay? Sometimes we also call it this, like doing the right things is effectiveness, and doing things right is efficiency. You could put quality in there as well, but let's not get into quality. I'll keep it simple. As we saw earlier in talks today, also simple is important, okay? So that's effectiveness and efficiency. Another way to look at it is from the customer's point of view. Where is the customer when we talk about efficiency? Nowhere. Efficiency is about looking inwards, like how can we improve processes, how can we automate, how can we oil the machine so it goes faster, as you said, right? So we can get like more stuff done, okay? But you're not looking out, you're not really, if you're just focusing on efficiency, you're not really interested in what the customer says, okay, whoever's buying your product. When I say product, I mean software, hardware, processes, services, whatever, right? Okay? Effectiveness is pretty much the opposite from that perspective. It's looking outwards. It's like, what does the market want? What do our customers want? What do they need? What are they willing to pay for? Okay? So efficiency is about the how do we do stuff? And effectiveness is the what do we do? I guess most of you probably know about Scrum, so what roles do we have here? Are now called accountabilities. Who is Mr. Efficiency? Exactly, Scrum Master. I would also call the developers, like there's also, but yes, the Scrum Master mainly, and who is Mr. Effectiveness? Product Owner. I love this split, and I think it's really valuable if you understand the difference. Okay? So, efficiency and effectiveness. Goldratt, in his book, The Goal, if you haven't read it, please read it. It's the most fantastic book. It's really old, but it's fantastic, the goal. He defines success to be efficiency, time effectiveness, or doing the right things right. Okay, now the big question is, what comes first? Okay, if we are an inefficient and ineffective company, we will die, right? Nobody wants our products, and they cost a load of money because we are inefficient. We will die. Now, which direction do we go? Do we work on efficiency or effectiveness first? What would happen if we work, like sometimes I have people like, just go straightly to the green area. We know we have to prioritize, right? So if we go upwards first, and Peter Drucker knew this already, there's nothing quite so useless as doing with great efficiency something that shouldn't have been done at all. Okay? So if we have a product that nobody wants, and we just like the only thing we can do is like produce it more efficiently, so probably cheaper, with less resources, right? Then we could sell it cheaper, and people will go like, okay, I'll buy one more your toilet paper or whatever it is, once more, because it's really cheap, but it hurts. So probably the last time, okay? So if we do that, we might die a little bit slower, but we will probably still die, okay? The alternative, then by exclusion, would be, okay, then let's go in the other direction. So we'll go over here, and we will survive, but probably just barely. Does any company come to mind that has done exactly this? I'll use that company later in the presentation as well, like Tesla, I think. They built a product that only very few people were willing to pay for, but they paid crazy money for a Model S, like $120,000 for a car that you have no evidence will run how long, etc. Okay? But they built a product that at least a small fraction of people were willing to pay for. And now they're working on getting them produced more efficiently. Okay? And there's lots of examples of that. And then, if you then work on your efficiency, you have a chance to flourish as a company. Can you stay there? No, because the market changes faster and faster. People's opinions and what they want and the competition and startups and everything. So you need to stay on your toes and always recheck, like, do we still deliver the right product? So you always need, in my view, always need to put effectiveness first and then efficiency second. Okay? So another quote on that one I really like also from Stephen Covey is, if the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster. Right? I also like that. Like, how much worth is it if your ladder leans against a wrong wall and you just run up it? Doesn't really help a lot. And of course, Stephen Covey is the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, not highly efficient people. And one last slide on, let's call it theory, is like Mr. Effectiveness. So this guy up here, that's Mr. Efficiency. What does he shout? A little bit louder? Faster, exactly, faster. And I didn't instruct these people. So he shouts, what does Mr. Effectiveness over here in the very corner shout? War? More. No. What would be an effective solution? He could help them. That would make them more efficient, right? Yes, exactly. Plug the hole, right? In this particular situation, actually, it might make sense to first shove a little bit more water out before you have time. If it takes them 10 minutes to plug the hole, maybe the boat is sunk by then. Okay, so if you don't have the money, if you don't have the energy to actually focus on effectiveness, then maybe a short-term efficiency might be. And one example, last example I'll do on efficiency versus effectiveness. Imagine you have a tire factory, a factory that produces tires, okay? And they produce 10,000 tires a day. If they go to 12,000 tires a day without using extra input other than maybe rubber, but they don't need more factory, they don't need more workers, they don't need anything more of that, more electricity. Then they've increased efficiency by 20%, so they produce more stuff. If nobody buys those tires, they have low effectiveness. If you have a company, another tire factory that produces 3 tires a day, and people are basically standing in line and willing to pay any price for those tires because they love them, that company would be considered having high effectiveness, but probably in comparison to other like competition, low efficiency. So if you only have one of them, it doesn't really help you a lot. You need both ultimately. Okay? But please try and focus on effectiveness first. Now let's look at a few examples where companies didn't do that, where companies got into focusing too much on efficiency. First one, anybody recognizes this? What? Blockbuster, exactly. So as to my knowledge, Blockbuster didn't exist in the Netherlands, but it was, for instance, in Germany and Denmark. There wasn't any Blockbusters in Switzerland either, but mainly in the US. About 2/3 of the operation was in the US, but there was lots of Blockbusters outside as well. So this one obviously is closed. Looks pretty close. There's no cars. They even took the label off. So was that the only one? No. When I Googled for pictures of Blockbuster closing, I found this picture as well. It reads, "This location only." That's a lie, because when I Googled a little bit more, I found 7 more pictures without any problems. And as a matter of fact, in 2010, there was 9,085 further branches that closed when Blockbuster went bankrupt. And a few figures around Blockbuster. In 2004, they had the peak of their operation. They had a market capitalization of $5 billion. These 9,094 stores and close to 85,000 employees. A pretty good company in size. Forbes did an analysis on why they went bankrupt in 2014. And this is a quote I took out there. "The irony is that Blockbuster failed because its leadership had built a well-oiled operational machine. Not despite, because. It was a very tight network that could execute with extreme efficiency, but poorly suited to let in new information." That's Blockbuster in a nutshell. Okay? A few more quotes that are quite interesting. So Jim Keyes, the CEO of Blockbuster, he in 2008, this is 2 years before they went bust, said neither Redbox nor Netflix are even on the radar screen in terms of competition. It sounds proud to me. He was proud that they aren't on their radar screen in terms of competition. Okay? And he said, DVDs are a melting glacier. Yes, it's melting, but it's a slow melt. No, it's not. I got 600 DVDs in my basement. I have no freaking idea what to do with them. And I haven't used them for 10 years. That was that was even quicker than the glaciers melt in Switzerland due to global warming. And Bitcoin. Or Kevin Lewis, the head of digital strategy, he said, I have to read this, "We are strategically better positioned than almost anybody out there. Never in my wildest dreams would I have aimed this high." I'm sure he's CEO of some big company now. That was in 2010, the year they went bankrupt. And you know what's interesting? In 2000, so 10 years earlier, Reed Hastings, anybody knows who Reed Hastings is? The founder and still CEO of Netflix. He was in Dallas at the headquarters of Blockbuster, and he was in financial trouble. So he said, we should do something together. You can buy my company for $50 million. Let me reveal that. That would have been a good buy. Okay? They didn't. They laughed him out of the office. What the hell are you doing here? You're mail ordering DVDs, okay? But he had found the right product at that time. And he reinvented himself later to stream media, right? So today, Netflix has a market capitalization, and this is after a heavy decline. Here it's been twice as much worth already, but that's irrelevant. Today, their market capitalization is $81 billion. So that's a factor of 16 times higher than Blockbuster ever was. If they'd bought Netflix for 50 million, that would have been a return of 160,000%. That's a pretty good return. Okay? That said, I also believe that if they had bought Netflix, they would have killed the video star. I don't think Netflix would have existed. They probably would have again said, we need to make this more efficient. And let's look inwards again and just make it more efficient as Netflix so we can like squeeze out a few more extra dollars. But they would have never caught the streaming bus and jumped onto that bus. Okay? Second example. Anybody remember this thing? Everybody laughing now, you're giving away your age. That's not a brick, that's actually a telephone. Okay? It's the 3310 from Nokia. And in 2007, Forbes, again, they had this magazine come out, and I'll enlarge this, what it says down here. Can anyone catch the cell phone king? What else happened in 2007? iPhone. That was the year the iPhone came out. So, being smart in hindsight, can anybody catch the cell phone king? I guess so. This time INSEAD, and I'm sure Forbes also, did a study on like why did Nokia didn't go bust per se, but they completely lost their market share on smartphones, right? And I find it really interesting. In particular, I also have friends that work for Nokia in Denmark. These are not comments from these friends, but like on comments on that article from INSEAD. And there's stuff like Nokia was like a very large ship that took forever to change direction. And again, I like that picture. It's like this tanker, like it's just going forwards, like, ooh, opportunity, crap. What are we going to do, right? Or Nokia was a really efficient machine, but efficient at producing the wrong product, or type of product. The internal structure and way of operating made it very hard to respond. It's something that Preben also mentioned this morning, like in his view back on talk, like with the space shuttle, right? People had information, but management wouldn't allow in that information. Okay? So who else was in the mobile phone market back then? So Apple just got in 2007, and who? BlackBerry, yes, but that was not the one I was looking for. Samsung, yes, exactly. I had a Sony phone, which actually had a touch screen, but it was crap. Yeah, but actually Microsoft was also. So let's see Steve Ballmer talk about the iPhone.
Steve, let me ask you about the iPhone and the Zune, if I may. The Zune was getting some traction, and Steve Jobs goes to Macworld and he pulls out this iPhone. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not. We have our strategy. We've got great Windows mobile devices in the market today. You can get a Motorola Q phone now for $99. It's a very capable machine. It'll do music. It'll do internet. It'll do email. It'll do instant messaging. So I kind of look at that and I say, well, I like our strategy. I like it a lot.
He likes it a lot. So who has a Microsoft a Windows mobile phone? They faded, disappeared, right? Pretty quickly. Probably, I don't know, maybe even quicker than BlackBerry. Okay, so he likes this strategy. I like it a lot. What is his argument why their phone will win? It's cheaper, right? They can produce it cheaper. It's more efficient. He doesn't argue that well, he also tries to predict what the market wants. Mobile phones with keyboards. Who has a mobile phone with a keyboard? 0 to the ones in the front here. I didn't see any hands. So, he didn't know what the market wanted. The market wanted something else, and not mobile phones with keyboards, and not cheap phones necessarily. Probably some places, yes, but generally they were more looking for the right features. And the iPhone was incredibly inferior on the tech sheet, right? It had 2G, while 3G was long out already. You didn't have a front-facing camera. You couldn't do copy and paste, etc. It was really inferior. I understand why he laughs, because when I heard like Apple is coming out with a phone, I was like, it's never going to work. I was wrong. It worked quite well. Now, history has it with repeating itself, which I think anyway, which brings me to example number 3 and the last example, and this is in the car industry. So this is a German video, but there's English subtitles. I hope you can read them. Otherwise, yeah, I think you get the gist just by listening in.
Jetzt muss ich dann doch mal einen Satz zu Tesla sagen, bei allem Respekt, bei allem Respekt, es gibt auf dieser Welt Ankündigungsweltmeister, ich nenne keine Namen, es gibt Unternehmen, die verkaufen mit Mühe 80.000 Autos pro Jahr, Volkswagen 11 Millionen in dem Jahr, dann gibt es Unternehmen wie Volkswagen, die erwirtschaften pro Jahr einen Gewinn von 13, 14 Milliarden Euro, und wenn ich richtig informiert bin, vernichtet Tesla pro Quartal einen dreistelligen Millionenbetrag. Schmeißt die Mitarbeiter raus, wie sie lustig sind, also Sozialkompetenz, weiß ich nicht, wo das ist. Also da bitte ich jetzt wirklich mal die Kirche im Dorf zu lassen und nicht Äpfel mit Birnen zu vergleichen. Ja, Barbara.
So that is Matthias Müller, the then CEO of Volkswagen Group. He was CEO from 2015 to 2018. We'll get back to the new CEO in a minute. So what he's arguing here again is efficiency, right? We do lots of cars and we can produce them cheaply and people will buy our cars, and Tesla is only producing 80,000 cars a year. We're producing 11 million a year. It's laughable with 80,000. Okay, now let's look at the stock market. So here we have Volkswagen and Tesla, right? The blue line is Volkswagen. So we normalized them both here that day, October 19th, 2007, when he made this speech, well, said these words, okay? And what happened in the aftermath? Yesterday, Volkswagen had a plus of 11% on their shares. That's crap for 5 years. You might as well have put your money in the bank. Almost. You would have lost money there, okay, but okay, 11% is not great. Okay, so what happened to Tesla? 846%. And don't get me started on whether that actually reflects the value of the company. I'm not going to get into that discussion. It's crazy if you ask me. And of course, I wish I would have bought Tesla shares, just like I wish I would have bought Bitcoins when they were $1. But 846% is a pretty decent return on 5 years. Okay, so the share market at least thinks that Tesla is not apples and pears, but they are comparable, and Tesla is in the lead for sure. Okay? I think Volkswagen is headed for quite some problematic future time because they just can't react. He scanned this tanker. I mean, they've had 10 years now to react to Tesla, okay? They have all the engineers in the world. They have German engineers of all, right? They have loads of money, as he just boasted there. And they still seem not to be able to react. They've spent forever to build their ID platform, and it's crap from a software point of view. You still can't do over-the-air updates, which Tesla could do 10 years ago. It's ridiculous. Today, Tesla is worth 7 times Volkswagen. 7 times the market capitalization to Tesla, so yesterday. It's been up to 12 times, but now currently it's 7 times, okay? Or Tesla's worth is these 5 companies plus GM and Ford. That's the market capitalization of Tesla, is of the 7 next biggest car companies. Again, it's crazy. But that's what the market apparently thinks. and they still focus on efficiency. So Herbert Diess, who's currently the CEO who took over in 2018 from Matthias Müller, I'm pretty sure he's proud to be called an efficiency expert and cost cutter. Which brings me to the first warning sign, or smell, as I think we in software development often like to call it, right? Smells. We'll talk for about 4 warning signs, and the first one is exactly that. Budgets and cost cutting. If you're in an organization where there's regularly talk about cost cutting and they're trying to reduce price by reducing budgets, like next year we'll get 10% less, same as cost cutting, right? That's a warning sign that you're in an organization that probably is focusing on efficiency. They're trying to force you to produce the same, but with less input. So reducing cost. And I'm not saying it's always a bad idea, but no thriving company came out of just cost cutting. Okay, there will not be any innovation, anything like that. Okay, that it shows there's a focus on cost rather than value, the value you produce. So it's a look inwards again. And the second one is company run by process people. Okay, and you could consider me a process person, being an agile coach and stuff. Okay, so if I'm a process person, I probably shouldn't run a company like that. What I mean by process people in this context is people that focus on, like, we need to have the right process and we need to automate things, which is all good. Of course, we also need to do that. But if you forget to look behind you, what does the market actually want, like Blockbuster did, like Nokia did, like I think Volkswagen currently does, then you might miss the window of the market, and it doesn't matter how efficiently you can produce. Okay? The third one is high degree of specialization. If you have a high degree of specialization in your organization, and they are further investing to specialize, like to make high specialists even more specialized, in the idea of that if everybody does their little part super efficiently, then everything will be done super efficiently, then that is probably a sign that the organization is focusing on efficiency rather than effectiveness. Or at least in that order, first efficiency and then effectiveness. If you suggest, hey, why don't we let Pete do this work? But Pete is not the specialist. Why would you let Pete do that? Well, so we cross-train him a little bit and we get T-shaped profiles. I won't get into what T-shaped profiles are. I think most of you probably know it. But it's the ability to work outside your specialization. If you suggest that and the company or the culture in the company kind of says like, no, we're not going to do that. We'll continue working and focusing on a high degree of specialization with the handovers that go along with that, then that's probably a sign that your company is focusing most on efficiency. And last but not least, utilization maximization. So if your company is focusing on maximizing the utilization of whatever, it could be meeting rooms, so just make sure that all meeting rooms like are hey, if I'm responsible to increase the utilization of our meeting rooms, there's an easy way to achieve my goal. Out of the 10 meeting rooms I have, I'll just close 2. And the remaining 8 will automatically increase in utilization. But if you're at a utilization of close to 100%, it'll take everybody forever to find a time where you can book a meeting room. So that's a bad idea. It's just as bad as trying to focus on like how can we get more cars on our road. If you have a motorway and your goal is to fill as many cars as possible on the motorway, you can do that and have them bumper to bumper, but how fast will they move? And it's the same with people. If you have utilization maximization, then people will actually come to a halt, or teams will come to a halt and really not work. The interesting part of what I just said is like that's not even efficient. It's not focused on effectiveness, but it's not even efficient. Okay, but a lot of companies still do that, in my experience anyway. So what the name really what this book really should have been called is The Art of Delivering Twice the Value at Half the Cost, in that order, because here we focus on effectiveness value, and efficiency, cost. Okay? The art of delivering twice the work in half the time was in the Scrum at Scale guide as well. I got that changed at least. So that now reads in the Scrum at Scale guide, the art of delivering twice the value at half the cost. Okay, that was the keynote. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Do you think that Netflix is currently in the same position as where Blockbuster was 10 years ago?
I don't think so. You mean because they lost market share now, etc.?
And because streaming services pop up all over the place?
They probably need to reinvent themselves and find some other market, because now they're in a Haifischbecken in German. I don't even know what that's called in like a shark tank. Oh, you call it shark tank in English as well, right? So it's a shark tank, and that's getting more and more sharks, like Disney, etc. So yeah, they probably need to find a new area. Oh, not him again.
Okay, Klaus, so this was an entertaining talk, but what do you want us to do? Should we just run when we see those smells?
So I don't know what the echo, if you heard it, but he asks whether we should run when we see those smells. And it reminds me of, like, somebody asked some similar question in a training I gave with Jeff once, and Jeff's answer was, yes. You know what? If everybody left bad companies, we wouldn't have bad companies anymore.
Oh, come on, that's ridiculous. Sorry. I saw you at Chicago and you stopped exactly the same place. It just doesn't make sense. If you all run away from these companies, where should we run? Not everybody is focused on effectiveness, right?
To the next company.
Let me just do this, okay?
What are you doing?
I'm trying to. Yes, this was it. Give me the clicker. Oh, it's here. So you just want us to run?
Yep.
And where should we run?
As fast as you can.
Come on. I also am a proponent for effectiveness, but I want to fight, right? I want to change this world that just focuses on efficiency. Or if we can't win, yeah, you can see I want to fight, right?
Yeah.
You should see the other guy. Okay. Or at least I want to contain kind of this efficiency thinking, so it doesn't affect or disturb the environment that we are trying to build, making it more effective. So how do we do that? So if we take out the run part, and we look at fight and contain, what do I actually mean by fight? I mean, with fight, I don't mean the physical thing. I mean, how can we change the thinking of people that are efficiency focused towards effectiveness? How can we make them change their behavior? And contain, I mean, how can we work with them despite the fact that they have this efficiency perspective? So we leave them alone, but in that case, we probably need to have some kind of adapter between the efficiency world and the effectiveness world. In either case, whether we want to fight or contain, we need to be curious. We need to understand, why do they think these thoughts about efficiency being more important than effectiveness? So we need to understand the why, we need to understand their goals, and also their individual perspective in this. Let's have a look at a couple of examples. So if we look at budgets and cost cutting, why do we actually have budgets, and why do we focus on cost cutting? Well, budgets is a management tool to govern and control. And the goal is to keep within budgets. It's our wish for predictability. And seen from the management, one perspective is we want to make sure that we are staying within these budgets, so that's why we have status reports. And I have an example where I worked at a company and we started a project to create an app where people, it was an insurance company, so when you have a car accident, you could register your accident via an app instead of calling in the company wanted to save money on the people sitting at the telephones. And the first couple of status reports were always focused on, so when can we start to fire some of the people or relieve them because we have made a business case that indicates it should be right now. What I've done before in a couple of companies is trying to change the reporting in a big bang from a classical budget cost cutting to a more agile flow, adoption rate, impact perspective. But it usually fails because it requires all managers and all the supporting roles to understand that. And that requires a lot of energy and coaching. So instead, what we did at this last company was that we piggybacked on these status reports. We delivered the information they wanted, but we did add more effective-oriented measurements, like adoption rate, like flow, like a graph that showed how many calls were not delivered anymore or called in. And that allowed us to change the dialogue from an efficiency focus to a more effective focus. I think that is a good hack, you could say, that might be valuable for other people. Another example, specialism. Why do we have specialism? Klaus already said it, right? There's this idea that if we have a specialist, he will be able to do a task faster. Maybe being able to do the task at all. A natural idea then is to say, oh, if we have specialists everywhere, we can do all our tasks quickly. Perfect. And if you see it from the specialist perspective, there's also some proudness related to a specialist, being a specialist, right? I mean, you've invested a lot of years to become really good at something. But an issue that we identified, at least at another company, was that if we had a team that actually looked at effectiveness, but they had a dependency to a specialist, in our case it was printing. In a big company, there was one person who knew how to print PDFs. And every time a team was actually hitting this functionality, they had a dependency to this guy. And it slowed this team down. So how can we actually contain this need or this wish for a specialty or specialism? Well, what we did in the team was we actually took one of our guys and put him next to the specialist the first time he implemented the stuff that we needed. The second time, we put him next to him again. And by the third time, he could actually do 50 to 60% of the work that the specialist did. And by that, we can actually reduce our dependency. And we created a relationship to this guy, our adapter to this world of efficiency, that we then could use to improve our effectiveness in the team. A third example, utilization maximization. I think actually it's quite a natural thing that when I'm employed in a company, I want to contribute to that company. I want to help. They are paying my salary, right? And my perspective is that if I'm not used, I kind of have this need to do something. And I think that is very human and natural, but sometimes actually it's not very effective. We see that also often in agile teams when we do planning. We take in a story, and one of the guys in the team says, well, I'm not busy all the time. And we pull in another story, and maybe another story. And actually, we all know that's not a good tactic, because we have far too much work in progress. Flow doesn't really, or we don't really have flow, because suddenly we are requesting the same person working on multiple user stories and so on. And it's not that good, actually. So another containment strategy that we applied was, before we started a sprint, we looked at, are there lower priority tasks outside the team that this guy could work on and satisfy his need to feel utilized. Always with an agreement that as soon as the team needed him, he would step into the team and work there. And I think that's another example of a containment tactic of working with this natural, maybe more efficiency-focused perspective in an effective-oriented context. These were just 3 examples, and this morning I saw Fred George have a talk about sabotaging transformations, and I think there were quite some good ideas there too, so if you haven't seen that, I would suggest you look at that. Anyhow, I guess the point is, I don't disagree with you, Klaus. Effectiveness is more important than efficiency, but sometimes you make it a little bit square. So I would rather use a more agile-oriented way of expressing it and saying effectiveness over efficiency. And in the lines of the Agile Manifesto, meaning that the item on the right has value, but the item on the left has more value. And if you're struggling with this in your companies, I would say persevere for some time, because you can always decide to run away later. But don't run from the beginning. And I guess you have a feeling that I'm not that much of a stranger. I'm actually Klaus's brother, the annoying brother. I live in Denmark. I am also an Agile coach, which makes us have really interesting discussions when we meet. I work for a hearing aid company, WSAudiology, which I think is really interesting because it's a very complex context with a hearing aid, with firmware, apps, and so on. And looking at effectiveness in that context is really a challenge. And that's what I'm working with. So thank you for participating.